So, picture this, a school that's basically at the top of its game. The results are in, everything on paper looks absolutely perfect, but a single question is about to turn everything upside down. I mean, the numbers were just flawless, a 100% pass rate. And not just that, a record-breaking number of students hitting those top marks, those distinctions. This is the dream result for any school, right? It's the ultimate sign of success. Or so everyone thought. And then, right in the middle of all the celebrations, the principal just drops this bombshell. Are our students truly educated? Can you imagine the silence in that room? It's a question that just slices right through all the spreadsheets and statistics. And that one question, well, it lit the fuse for a complete and total transformation. This wasn't about blaming the teachers or anything like that. It was about questioning the very idea of success they were all working so hard to achieve. This is where you see the huge disconnect. A senior teacher, totally confident, stands up and says, "We completed the syllabus." That was supposed to be the final word, the proof. But the principal's response, "That is not what I asked." It just showed they were on two completely different planets. One was talking about finishing a checklist, the other was talking about building people. So that moment forced the entire school to go right back to the drawing board. They had to get past the easy, comfortable world of metrics and really, truly rewrite what they were all there for. It was time to ask, okay, what kind of person do we want walking out of our doors? And this right here, this says it all. The goal wasn't just to get through all the chapters in a textbook anymore. No, the new goal was so much bigger, so much more ambitious. To build human capacity, to actually nurture people who were curious, who could reason, and who were genuinely capable. And this led to their first big revolution. Lesson plans stopped starting with, "Today we cover Chapter 5. Instead, they started with a clear learning outcome. The whole focus shifted from what the teacher was going to cover to what the student would be able to do. It's a subtle change in words, sure, but it's a massive shift in philosophy. Okay, so that all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like in the classroom when the bell rings? Well, this new way of thinking turned learning from something you just listen to into something you actually do. Let me tell you about a 6th grader named Arav. For him, math class was a place of pure fear. And he's like so many kids who are just terrified of subjects that feel like a long list of rules you just have to memorize. See, the old way was totally passive. Teacher writes a formula on the board, students copy it down, end of story. But now, the teacher puts some paper squares on the desk and asks them to actually prove the formula. All of a sudden, math isn't about memorizing. It's about building and arguing and reasoning. And for the very first time, Arav raises his hand. Math became thinking. And science class got a total makeover too. Experiments weren't just the teacher doing a cool demo at the front of the room anymore. Nope. They became investigations led by the students themselves. And how they were graded changed too. It wasn't about getting the right answer. It was about the quality of their thinking. How clear was their hypothesis? How well did they design their method? Social science class basically turned into a laboratory for citizenship. Instead of just memorizing facts about democracy, students had to dig into a real problem in their own local community. They had to research it, debate it, and actually propose solutions. They weren't just learning facts from a book, they were learning how to be citizens. And what about subjects like art? Well, they stopped being just a fun break from real learning. They became a critical tool for thinking. For a quiet student like Mira, who never said a word in class, art became her voice. It was how she could explore really complex ideas and show everyone what she was thinking. And here's the really brilliant part. They started smashing the walls between subjects. This water project is just a perfect example. The kids used math, science, social studies, language, and art not as separate classes, but as a toolkit to solve one single real-world problem. Now that is an education for life. But even after all of this, the school realized something huge was still missing. Building human capacity, it turned out, had to be about more than just being smart or creative. It had to be about the whole person. And then came this incredibly painful wake-up call. One morning, the school's top student, the one with the best grades, literally collapsed during assembly from stress and a lack of sleep. It was this harsh, unavoidable proof that amazing grades don't mean a person is doing well. A successful student isn't just smart, they're healthy. So the school acted immediately. They completely redesigned the schedule to make well-being a priority. PE was no longer the class you could just skip. It became essential, right alongside things like yoga, mindfulness, and real mental health support. And you know what the crazy part is? Academic performance actually improved. But this time, it was healthy and sustainable. They also introduced this other really powerful idea, the dignity of work. They brought in skills like carpentry, coding, and basic electrical repair. And by doing that, they taught the students a profound lesson, that intelligence isn't just about books. The ability to make something, to fix something with your hands, that is also a form of genius. So, after all these radical changes, after years of this really bold experiment, what happened? What was the final result? Did it all actually work? Well, that brings us to the most important part of this whole story. Fast forward 5 years, the first batch of students who went through this completely new system came back to visit. They were engineers, artists, entrepreneurs, and now, finally, the school had a chance to get an answer to that nagging question from all those years ago. The principal asked them straight up, "What did you learn here?" And their answers, they were just incredible. Nobody mentioned a chapter from a textbook or a formula. They said, "We learned how to think, how to ask questions, how to stay healthy, how to learn on our own." They learned all the things that actually matter in life. And that's it, right there. That's the whole point. This school made a really brave choice. It stopped doing the easy, measurable job of just completing the syllabus and took on the much harder and much more important work of actually building human beings. And that kind of leaves us with a question to think about, doesn't it? When we look at our own schools, our workplaces, maybe even our own lives, are we just focused on checking off boxes and completing the syllabus? Or are we doing the real work of building human beings?